February 8, 1942, at the Yogyakarta airfield on the island of Java, the Boeing B-17E Flying Fortress, serial number 41 to 2471, lay abandoned on the humid, sun-scorched runway as Japanese forces swept across the Dutch East Indies, its American crew having fled only hours earlier. The bomber, damaged in a crash landing but still largely intact, belonged to the 7th Bomb Group of the United States Army Air Forces, and within days it would become one of several captured flying fortresses scattered across Java's airfields, aircraft whose discovery would force Japanese engineers to confront a sobering truth about America's industrial power. When Japanese troops overran Java in March 1942, they found the B-17E at Myoan Field in surprisingly good condition, missing its nose and engines but structurally sound. Nearby, more B-17s awaited, one at Malang, another at Cirebon, and two more at Bandung, as noted by aviation editor Toro Saito of Asahi Press, who toured the captured bases and observed that Bandung had been the principal American maintenance hub. Word of intact B-17s reached Tokyo, and the Koku Jujutsu Kenkyujo, the Air Technical Research Institute at Tachikawa, Japan's elite aeronautical research center, immediately dispatched engineers to Java to examine the aircraft. Their task was enormous. The B-17E was the most advanced bomber in the Pacific, its systems far more complex than anything Japanese industry produced, yet using salvaged parts and even captured Allied mechanics pressed into service, Japanese technicians painstakingly restored at least two of the Java B-17Es to flying condition, translating American manuals and learning U.S. engineering practices as they worked. By late 1942, they had restored two B-17Es, adding them to another B-17D captured earlier in the Philippines, and in mid-1943 flew the restored bombers, escorted by fighters and a Nakajima L-2D, through Singapore and north to Japan, using specially prepared flight plans to prevent friendly fire incidents. Once at Tachikawa, Major Kazuyuki Saito assembled a team of engineers, test pilots, and specialists to examine every structural, mechanical, and operational detail of the three captured flying fortresses. Their study of the airframe stunned them. Rivet spacing, panel curvature, structural members, and major components were nearly identical across all three aircraft, revealing a level of production standardization impossible under Japan's craftsman-based manufacturing system. Japanese aircraft required expert hand-fitting. American aircraft were assembled with interchangeable parts made to precise tolerances. The disassembly of the Wright R-1820 Cyclone engines revealed tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch, identical across multiple engines, crankshafts, pistons, cylinder barrels, and connecting rods perfectly interchangeable without adjustment, something unimaginable in Japanese engines that required skilled technicians to custom-fit components. Hydraulics, too, used fully standardized threads and couplings. Any actuator could be swapped without modification. Electrical systems used machine-crimped connectors and modular components instead of hand-soldered wiring. Oxygen regulators bore stamps from American automobile manufacturers, proving that the U.S. industrial base was so deep that even car parts factories could produce aircraft-grade precision components. Even the bomb racks impressed the engineers. American shackles were self-adjusting, unlike Japanese racks that required specialist calibration. The defensive armament shocked Japanese fighter pilots who flew practice intercepts against the captured bombers, 13.50 caliber Browning machine guns covering nearly every approach angle, firing up to 600 rounds per minute, weapons built with loose tolerances yet astonishing reliability. Through 1943, the B-17s flew regularly from Fusa Airfield near Tachikawa, appearing in training films, sometimes repainted in American markings, sometimes escorted by a captured P-40, used both for military doctrine and propaganda, though the propaganda omitted a grim realization: even if Japan shot down a B-17, America could replace it faster than Japan could replace its fighters. Publications like Anatomy of the Enemy's Aircraft, 1943, and articles in Koku Asahi analyzed the B-17, with experts like Shizu Kahara and Hisanojo Ozawa praising the bomber's subsystem integration and cockpit simplicity while carefully avoiding the most disturbing truth, that American industry operated at a level Japan could not match. A ground accident in 1944 destroyed one of the B-17s, allowing engineers to cut open the wings and measure thousands of rivets, discovering installation accuracy variations of less than 1/10,000th of an inch, precision only achievable by automated riveting machines and massive hydraulic presses that Japan lacked. In May 1945, American intelligence photographed Tachikawa and misidentified one of the captured B-17Es as a new Japanese four-engine design, the Tachikawa 104, because analysts never suspected Japan still possessed intact flying fortresses. Yet despite all this evaluation, Japan could not translate these insights into a new bomber. Lack of precision machinery and high-temperature alloys crippled attempts to build reliable turbo-superchargers for advanced fighters and bombers like the Ki-74, Ki-83, J-2M, and G-8N. The problem was never theoretical knowledge. Japanese engineers understood the technology perfectly. They simply could not manufacture it. By 1944, the industrial disparity was undeniable. America produced 96,000 aircraft that year, Japan barely 28,000, and Japanese aircraft required far more maintenance due to their handcrafted nature. A single American bomber represented more sustained combat capability than a Japanese aircraft because it could be repaired quickly with standardized parts by minimally trained mechanics. The B-17 embodied the production system that made this possible. Boeing Plant 2 had built nearly 7,000 B-17s, Douglas Long Beach, 3,000, Lockheed Vega, 2,750, for a total of 12,731 flying fortresses produced with astonishing speed and uniformity. Japanese engineers, studying serial numbers on the captured aircraft, calculated production rates that horrified them. They realized Japan was fighting an industrial war against an enemy capable of producing aircraft in quantities Japan could not begin to match. When American B-29s appeared over Japan, striking factories like Nakajima Musashino, Mitsubishi Nagoya, and Kawasaki, the already fragile Japanese production network collapsed, further damaged by a devastating earthquake in January 1945. After the war, the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey confirmed what Japanese engineers already knew. Japanese aircraft production relied overwhelmingly on skilled manual labor, limited standardization, and inconsistent subcontractor quality, while American factories relied on automated processes, precision tooling, and interchangeable parts. The captured B-17s, later destroyed before Japan's surrender, lived on in the minds of the engineers who studied them. These engineers became leaders of Japan's post-war industrial transformation, applying American mass production principles to rebuild the nation. Over 2 decades, Japan shifted from craftsman-built manufacturing to precision automated production, with companies like Toyota, Sony, and Honda refining American methods into systems like just-in-time manufacturing and continuous improvement. The skilled craftsman was no longer the builder of each product, but the designer of the production system that ensured quality at scale. By the 1970s, Japan surpassed America in manufacturing efficiency, and by the 1980s American engineers toured Japanese factories to learn the very principles Japan had learned from dissecting American bombers. For decades, Japanese engineering schools taught the story of the captured B-17s as a case study in industrial methodology, proof that victory in modern industry comes not from superior craftsmanship but from superior production systems, that quality must be engineered into the process rather than added through skilled hands, and that understanding an opponent's methods is more important than copying their designs. And so, while the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress dropped over 640,000 tons of bombs during World War II, perhaps its greatest impact came not from the destruction it caused, but from the lessons it taught its enemies. The Japanese engineers who studied the captured flying fortresses learned that modern warfare and modern industry, is won by nations capable of producing adequate machines in overwhelming quantities through systematic, standardized, and scalable production. Those damaged bombers that sat on a muddy Javan airfield in 1942 became the unintentional teachers of Japan's industrial rebirth, shaping global manufacturing for generations and proving that in the long war of industry, the true victory belongs to those who master production itself.